So let's get this straight before we get into the topic that was advertised in the email that you got. California Democrats would rather see their state burn than let Trump hold office unopposed. Great headline Alex wrote because I forgot to write. Woo! Alex for the win. I want to talk about something else real quick, and that's the Hegseth hearings and the Alice in Wonderland reality of what our country has become from the top of the political world on down. We'll do this with the help of knowyourriskradio.com. That's Zach Abraham's outfit, as the figurehead would call it. It's his outfit, doing his first free live webinar of the year coming up sometime in January. Go to knowyourriskradio.com to register, and thank you, God Almighty, for this opportunity.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. No. From the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times through which God has decided we shall live. So let's just talk quickly, briefly, or maybe for the whole show, because that's kind of where my heart's at today, about the Hegseth hearing. And we have a whole bunch of video coming tomorrow, but I didn't get it for today because I thought we were going to stick on the script. No, second hour. We're doing some Hegseth stuff. So let's just cast ourselves into, let's remove ourselves from the water. Fish don't know they're wet. And let's look at this from the perspective of what has happened. You have Lizzie Warren, who was a fake Indian and stole scholarships from actual First Peoples because she thought she was an Indian. If you look at her, you know there's not a chance that she has more than 1/100th Indian blood. In fact, there was a blood-tested DNA test, apparently, that showed she has something more like Chilean. No, she did. It was like a Chilean background or something, but more than that than Native American. So you have a woman who faked her ethnic biological background to get a better job in academia, who made herself wealthy by capturing homes from people who were in the unfortunate position of going through foreclosure, or perhaps they acted irresponsibly, perhaps it's a combination of the two. But she buys these houses on the cheap, flips them, and good for her, right? That's okay. Who has a teaching job at an elite university but doesn't teach, but gets the paycheck, who is a key operative of a party that teaches youngsters how to have. Yeah, I know. Alex is looking for his, okay, where do I write that one down? Because that's not allowed to go out on the censorship platforms. We can do it on the audio platforms. That's what they teach high school kids. It's in some of the curricula. I can show it to you. She's part of a party for which fornication and adultery and use and promotion were one of the key promotional items of their selected presidential candidate, who stole the nomination from a decrepit old man who himself is in all likelihood someone who had inappropriate shower touchings with his daughter. She, on the other hand, was questioning a guy who has made some stupid decisions, apparently, who doesn't have or didn't control over his libido or his need for intimacy or whatever excuse you use, who is, in fact, a former soldier who did, in fact, get dirt on the boots, who by all measures served honorably in that position, who has 2 degrees he actually earned without being or pretending to be an Indian. And she's telling him he is not qualified because he won't make a pledge to not go back and work in the defense industry because he says generals should make that pledge. And all he has to say is, I'm not a general. And Lizzie Warren, the great mind, is flat-footed. Is that Alice in Wonderland? You are not qualified with your 2 advanced degrees from elite universities, even though you worked in the battlefield and you have studied military history as a vocation and avocation, you've spent your time studying the wars, the mistakes that have been made, you are disqualified, but I, Lizzie Warren, am qualified to stand here in your judgment, given this background of utter lies. And that's one example. And I thought that Pete Hegseth did a good job of handling all that. And another example, I guess I should just wait until the second, because now there's no reason for the second hour. But Timmy Kane? Okay, I'm going to have to refocus because I could just rip into this. Should we do this or not? I'm asking you, Alex. I mean, you're part of the show. I know you've got the video. Should we just switch? No, I can't put you through that work. Okay, I'm talking off camera to Alex. It's very annoying to people who aren't watching. Second, we're going to get a camera on you. I've decided that we're going to. No, you are. We're going to put a camera on you. You're going to start to have to dress up and such. I know. A little unfocused this morning because of where my head is at. I just want to be on the Hegseth thing. Well, just one other thing on the Hegseth. No, let me do the Boptimizers thing. Then just one other thing. I just promised, and just pull the image. Pull this image. See the Google Doc? Pull that image. I was talking at the gym. Imagine that. I was at the gym with a woman who is a trainer there, and was talking about her and her husband, and they've relocated here. They lived where my wife and I did, right near us. So just connecting. She came over this way, and we come over this way, and she wears a patch on her arm, and it's a patch to help her with her metabolism and hormonal balance, and she's in great shape. So I was asking about that patch. She shocked me saying she found out about my podcast. And she said, "What's that magnesium you talk about?" And this is really, it's cringy for me in public. I'll talk about it. I love Magnesium Breakthrough. I'll talk about any of the Boptimizers products. But then I have to give her the URL that has the Todd attached to it. And she's kind like, okay, yeah, I get it, that this is you track the sales, et cetera. But why do I feel weird about that? I do that with you guys. Hey, have you not tried Magnesium Breakthrough? So that would mean to me that there's three things maybe going on. One, you have no problem sleeping, no problem with regularity, and you have found out that you do not have a magnesium shortage. Therefore, you don't have extra stress, no cortisol or high levels of cortisol in your body. You figured that out. If so, you're excused. Now, if that's not the case, and you do have problems sleeping and with regularity, and you do have this stress, have you tried Magnesium Breakthrough? Maybe the other thing is you're getting the magnesium from the China Marts, which in that case, you're not getting magnesium, you're getting synthetic magnesium, sort of like plastic food. Therefore, you're not getting the full benefit of a full spectrum magnesium supplement, 7 forms of magnesium, all naturally derived. In other words, organic. And the last thing would be that you just refuse to do anything that would possibly, even in a backhanded way, help the show. I get that. Like oppositional. I refuse. I'll listen, I'll watch, but I ain't going to help. So if those things are not the case, try Magnesium Breakthrough. Go to buyoptimizers.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get 10% off all their products. And when you subscribe to their products, not only do you never miss a shipment, they're so good at that, you get exclusive discounts, exclusive offers, exclusive gifts, but you never run out of products. That's buyoptimizers.com/Todd, promo code Todd. So this is the image I asked Alex to grab, and now I can't use it in the second hour, so I just really messed my day up, completely screwed myself up. Do you remember the moral panic that ensued with Democrats and leftists because of that tattoo that Pete Hegseth has? And man, it's a nasty tattoo. It's of a cross. And they instantly said, oh, this is white supremacy. So clear. And they said this cross has no place in the arm of an American soldier. And the Secretary of Defense, sick. In fact, we were told, some of Pete Hegseth's people with whom he served came and said that cross was white supremacy. They were deeply concerned. So where else could you find that cross? You could find that cross etched into the floor of the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. You can see this on the image. Someone is shining that cross leading up to the memorial for Jimmy Carter. Interestingly, of course, though, Jimmy Carter had nothing to do with this. I mean, Jimmy Carter is dead, and he claimed to walk with Jesus. I didn't see the fruits of that, but good thing I'm not judged. Jesus knows, and I don't have to know. But they can't change that. You know, you can't blame the Jimmy Carter family for that. After all, they had that song, Imagine, which is a beautiful song, and it's dedicated to atheism. I mean, Lennon didn't dedicate it to atheism, but that's what it means. You know where else it was found? On the pamphlets. On the Jimmy Carter memorial pamphlets. The same cross. So if you look at this hearing with Hegseth, let's look at another just utterly Alice in Wonderland moment. You had Democrats complaining that Pete Hegseth got drunk on a party bus. What is the purpose of a party bus? Oh, it's just a bus. No, it's not. It's a bus you get on to get drunk so you don't drive drunk. And it's a party bus. And it turns out that Pete Hegseth, a guy with a whole ton of testosterone, a warrior type, a risk-taking type, a guy who enjoys pushing the flesh, exercise and combat, who probably then struggles with pleasing the flesh, got drunk on a party bus. Meanwhile, you have Washington, D.C., where members, and I've seen it, they have wet bars in their offices, in their ceremonial offices. When you rise to the occasion of leading a committee, you get this ceremonial office. And the one that is most horrendous and gross is the Speaker's office. And he gets two, or she. There's this great big, huge ceremonial office with like 15 rooms and this cacophonous conference room. And I remember the great man, John Boehner. I got to go observe a meeting there once. And someone said, you should go just to see the office. And so I did. And got to sit there and watch John Boehner walk in a waft of cigarette smoke. And then they've got this other ceremonial office, which is up high. And there's this historic back room staircase, winding staircase over which the British drove their horses up there to defecate and to defile the building. So you have these offices and you have these speakers, and I'm in that ceremonial office with John Boehner, and what's there? There's a wet bar. I went to another cabinet lead's office because his kid was, almost said the P word, angry with me for not giving him $7 million to build a website that was about $250,000 website. And I got called into his office, his ceremonial office. And I had to wait in the antechamber. Then I got to go into the great room, another cacophonous, huge room. And then I got to go into the great man's office with the great man's staff. And the great man sat behind his great man desk. And guess what was behind the great man's great desk? Booze. I've never seen more drinking in my life. No, that's not true. Slightly more drinking at a frat house where I was an honorary member. Slightly more. One of the, and we'll get to this later. One of the Republicans called out the fact that a lot of these people are drunk showing up for votes. Have you seen Kamala Harris lit? Nancy Pelosi can barely stand. And all of a sudden, the Democrats are deeply concerned that Pete Hegseth got drunk on a bus that exists for people to get drunk upon or within. And he's disqualified from being Secretary of Defense because he got drunk on a party bus. The topic of adultery, the fornication, that's gross. If he was truly with wife number 3 they're having a baby, and he decided, hey, you know what? I miss wife number 2. I want to go hit that. That's gross. Is it disqualifying by Washington, D.C. standards? The figurehead who had a babysitter named Jill. So she comes over to the house. At that point, he's a U.S. senator, and this babysitter comes in the house. Now, I don't know Joe Biden's heart. I don't know at what point he decided, I would like to trade up. But he did. And I don't know, maybe it was Jill. Maybe she decided to sit down on the great man's lap in that very infamous photo. A lot of, and I know wives like that when female babysitters who are 16 or 17 sit on the laps of their husband. That's normal. The Ashley Biden diary, that infamous comment about, I don't know that it was appropriate for my dad to want to shower with me all the time. That's why I started taking showers late at night. And we can go through the rest of the Democrat Party. The great lady who was almost president, Kamala Harris. Her husband, with a classic power differential, decided that he would have sex with a nanny and then coerce her into having an abortion. And it didn't. Apparently, the rumors are that he beat her up or arm twisted, physically assaulted. And Pete Hegseth is disqualified? All of these people have in Congress access to a $17 million slush fund, so you are forced to pay for their and abuse of staffers, and we don't get to get any information out of that fund. But Pete Hegseth is disqualified because he struggles with sexual sin. Oh, I thought he was a Christian. He appears to be a Christian who struggles with sexual sin. Those things are not mutually exclusive. And Pete Hegseth pretty clearly needs to give them some things to God. Maybe he will. All right, I don't know that I'm done with Hegseth. I'm trying to see. Here's one of the things that I don't like about podcasting. I miss about live radio is live radio. You sometimes you just throw the show out, and the things you're passionate about you talk about because I think it makes for better content, as it were. And sometimes Alex goes to such work. We put these rundown together. There's these cameras, and so I have this. Oh well, I have to do this. Alex is just saying you don't have to. He's giving me permission here. So let me just think about this while I tell you what's coming up with Zach Abraham. So Zach is doing a free live webinar Thursday, January 30th. He's the Chief Investment Officer of Bulwark Capital Management, very dear friend. His brother comes on our show nearly every Friday. And he's really looking at risk management strategy in the era of the empire striking back. The pick President Trump has for energy secretary is planning in his confirmation hearing to talk about the United States energy dominance. That's possible. We have all sorts of resources here. Natural gas, which the figurehead, of course, on his way out, was caused to make more difficult taking out of the ground because they want us energy dependent, because they're trying to destroy us. If his Secretary of Energy is going to talk about energy dominance, you have a battle coming. It's difficult to be set up for both conclusions. If they get what they want and we get energy dominance and we are once again a net exporter of natural gas, we are once again a net exporter of petroleum, we are going to install micronuclear, incredibly safe, such a small footprint, and you're talking about 1,000 to 10,000 to 1 return. An investment just on the energy policy. It's hard to be set up for both of those outcomes. So Zach's going to talk about what he thinks is likely to occur. He's not a soothsayer. He doesn't see into the future, but what is likely to occur and how it will affect your portfolio. Because if we get energy dominance, one thing can affect your portfolio really good. If you miss that, you're out. So get a second look at your portfolio. First, go to this free live webinar Zach's putting on January 30th. Go to knowyourriskradio.com. Register for that. That's knowyourriskradio.com. And hey, while you're there, sign up for a free, no obligation review of your portfolio. 5, 10, 15 years from retirement, doesn't matter. No obligation, so you do two things at once. Go ask for that free review, sign up for the free live webinar, and just understand how this is globally likely to affect people. KnowYourRiskRadio.com. Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 25-103. It's all part of a theme. Ain't it? Look at this image, Alex. It's already in the show rundown. It's as if God planned for me to have this distraction. So we have the figurehead on his way out the door, making it more difficult for us to be energy independent and to be a net exporter, attacking natural gas. Of course, they want this banned in your home because if you live in North Idaho and have a natural gas stove like we have and we love, we are causing BIPOC kids in Harlem to get asthma. Because when we turn on our natural gas stove, it goes into the atmosphere. Those BIPOC kids in Harlem, they're getting asthma from our natural gas, not the fact that there are old, decrepit heaters and air conditioning units in their apartments that are government run. Nothing like that. There's not only that, you have Biden on his way out doing everything he can to remind Democrats why they pay for him, why they're conned by him. Biden says that they're going to cover 100% of initial costs for LA fire recovery. Didn't I just read? And I did. I just read this morning that a state senator in Western North Carolina is reporting that people were, in fact, kicked out of their hotels because FEMA apparently didn't do the paperwork quick enough to allow them to stay in their hotels, although they have nowhere to go. So figureheads is ignoring that, is being caused to ignore that, meanwhile saying that they're going to cover 100% of the costs for the fire recovery in California. Clear and present picking of winners and losers. But Pete Hegseth's the problem. Gavin Newsom is nothing if not the slimiest, most opportunistic belly crawler since the belly crawler in the garden. Surely you won't die. This is Gavin Newsom, deeply concerned. He's determined that someone needs to do something.
Put out a letter to DWP asking, how is it that there was no water to fight this fire in certain places? We were here.
So just a little neurolinguistic programming, because I love that stuff. The second that question comes up, Gavin Newsom's hand subconsciously comes up to the side of his face. The higher that goes in your hand, the more you know you're about to lie, or you know this is a major problem.
And basically, these places just burned and there was nothing that could be done. Yeah. Does the state have any responsibility in that? Is there more the state can do to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Yeah, that's what I did. That's what the letter's about. Let's get to the bottom of it.
He wrote a letter, a harshly worded letter. Man, that's big. A stinking letter. I'm sorry, I'm not being very respectful to the governor of the beautiful state of California. Let me just allow him to finish.
Transparent. Let's move this forward quickly. DWP and the city and the oversight as it relates to the Met, and we want to make sure that all that information is made real time.
The shoulders. So neurolinguistic programming in his shoulders. If you're not watching the video, let me describe it. So he's shrugging his shoulders, and this is a subconscious effort to protect his neck and his aorta, because it's you're protecting yourself. You know that you're vulnerable at this point, so you're flexing your body because you know you're vulnerable. Because he knows he's lying.
And in public, I'm not interested in the finger point. I want to know what.
Okay, not interested in the finger pointing. But he's finger pointing. He's going to the agency responsible for water headed by a woman who takes home a base pay of $750,000 per year, a base pay, who had no experience in handling water, but worked at Pacific Gas and Electric, which was a major loser in a lawsuit in their culpability for another fire. But he doesn't want to finger point.
Hell happened. And would it have mattered? I mean, let's be honest about it here. I've talked to all my experts, all the firefighters I've been with. They said we could add an engine on every house in 90-mile-an-hour winds with all the pressure in the world. So you got to be realistic about that.
Okay, key. He didn't finish the sentence. I talked to all the firefighters. Would it have mattered? Would it have mattered? I've talked to all the firefighters who said we could add a fire engine on every single house, 90-mile-per-hour winds. He didn't finish the sentence. Would it have mattered? Yes. They would have saved every single home that had a fire engine on it if it had enough water. How do I know that? Because in the cases where people pumped their pool water out, they saved their houses. One old man, what am I saying? I'm 57 years old. So one middle-aged dude, he's slightly older than me, he made his family leave, his kids, grandkids, wife, everybody has to leave. He made his BIPOC servants stay behind and the gardeners, and he said that they were to use their bodies to shield the flames. They didn't really do that. I don't know that he has gardeners. But he's rich, therefore racist. So he was the only one who stayed behind. He pumped water out of his pool, and all he did was he sprayed down his roof, and then he looked for hot spots. So he's standing there, here comes some sparks, puts the sparks out, sees some smoke, puts the smoke out, saved his house. Rick Caruso, the gargantuanly rich real estate developer who should have been mayor and ran against Karen Bass, who, by the way, did you know Glenn Beck has reported? God bless Glenn. He's important. He's one of the most important commentators of our era. Did you know that Glenn has reported that Karen Bass was connected to the 1983 bombing of the United States Senate building? That Karen Bass? There's a little mini documentary I'm going to watch later that I think Glenn's people surfaced and he used. So credit where credit's due. So would it have mattered? Of course it would have mattered. So what were we doing? Gavin Newsom. Let me have him finish. Maybe I can go 5 seconds without interrupting.
But still doesn't make it right. And I want to know what went wrong so it doesn't happen again.
But when you saw those images, I mean, that outraged so many folks.
Oh, wait, that was it. Yes, it did outrage so many folks. Rick Caruso, I didn't finish the thought. He had a private fire engine or a firefighting company. Chris Bray shared this with us. He had thought ahead and had a private firefighting agency come out to save his very, very expensive, beautiful mall. So, yes, it would have made a difference. Okay, I'm going to shut up.
See the images. I was there.
Right.
I was right on the line. I was here within a couple hours of the incident. So we saw it firsthand. We were getting the feedback in real time. Yeah, I mean, look, these systems obviously were not designed for a catastrophic event of this scale and magnitude.
These systems, I said I was going to shut up, didn't I? These systems are not designed for a catastrophic happening of this magnitude. The systems exist so they don't get to that magnitude. The systems exist so that when the first fire starts, you don't have 35 fire engines waiting for repair. You do have firefighting aircraft on call. Your state is 1/3 on oceanfront. The systems, like raking the forests and getting rid of the underbrush, exist so it doesn't get to this level. The systems, like a reservoir that can hold 117 million gallons of water, exist so that there's water and water pressure to be able to fight the fires. So they don't get to that catastrophic level. Gav?
So the question is, they need to be designed in this new world reality where we're in the middle of January, it's 70 degrees out. You get hurricane force winds up to 100 miles an hour, extended over a period of time. That's reality. So you got to prepare for that new reality. There's a deviation of normalcy now as it relates to what's happened with this climate, and we've got to own up to that.
There's a deviancy of normality in regard to what's happened with this climate. No, there's not. You just had 2 years of record rainfall. Rainfall on that peninsula goes up and down. That part of the country has burned regularly on a regular basis. There's just no way to really hold these people responsible for such obvious lies. The ballot box in California, forget about it. Vote by mail, etc. So I would recall for the people in California, I mean, yes, do the recall. There's enough effort right now, enough energy. Maybe it works. And then his replacement comes in, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. But I would start calling for cities and conservative counties to begin suing. Government agency over government agency. We're not going to pay into California disaster relief funds. We want the ability to be able to have our own contracts with FEMA that are not state-run. We're going to start to have our own fire recovery bosses disconnected from all state regulations and sue us. And home ownership, HOAs, etc., which I know people hate. We happen to have a very good HOA. They should be right now lobbying en masse. We're going to have our own firefighting authorities. We're going to have our own water storage facilities to create our own water pressure. And we're going to take that off of the property taxes of our members. At that way, at least your HOA is doing something. At least they're lobbying for some decent outcomes. Newsom was careful to say this. He wants to make sure that there's no one gets going to go out and politicize a natural disaster.
The right thing. This is an emergency. We can do all this dance, and we have differences of opinion as it relates to all kinds of issues and values, and that's fair game, and that's important. That dialectic's important. But having this kind of friction when it comes to emergency response, where the emergency responders, these heroes, 12,000 that are on the front lines right now, taking care of people, making sure people are still alive. We're still doing emergency maintenance and evacuation. We're still concerned about flare-ups and spotting. You got kids right now that don't have money for baby formula, and we're trying to get them disaster assistance. You have folks in hotel rooms that have money only for tonight and don't know what's going to happen, haven't even had a chance to see their homes here, it's standing, or it's here, and it's not standing. We want to get them emergency assistance over the course of the next 18 months. That's why I was with the FEMA director today. That's what the President of the United States and I are talking about, and I'd like to have that conversation with the next President of the United States. Let's turn the page as it relates to the new incoming president. We'd like him to have the spirit of the current president and have the backs of people so we can recover. I want him to visit and understand the magnitude of this scope, what happened to the American people that happen to reside here in California. I'm not interested in politicizing an event like.
I'm not interested in politicizing an event like this, other than to say I want Donald Trump to be the same as Joe Biden. And notice his fanatical focus on the first responders, about whom he cares so deeply, which is why they didn't have any firefighting aircraft on hand, because of his deep, deep emotional attachment to first responders, which is why it's legal to loot in the state of California if it's under $1,000, because of his deep, deep, deep caring for first responders. That's why. So I'm looking at his face and mindful of the or the force of logs sticking out of my eyes. In other words, my own sin issues. And a guy like that who's gotten away with lying for so long, I just have this, God forgive me, but I think it's a funny image. I do. God forgive me. And maybe Jesus won't laugh. But I just have this picture of him on Judgment Day. And he tries this stuff with God when it's his turn at the throne of judgment. And God says, so I gave you stewardship over one of the largest states, biggest populations on your continent. Why did you choose to destroy people? Well, I think the important thing here is the first responders, and I mean, do you even start lying at that point? I think he would try. I think he would try. And then about 2 words into this, you'd realize this ain't working. Because God was there when he was whispering in the dark, man, we got to cover this up. Because God is all-knowing, all-seeing, all-present. God has designed our bodies to be not all-knowing and all-seeing, but always present with us until we have now we get the glorified bodies. But our bodies need things. And one of the things our bodies need are mentioned very often in the Bible. Things like holy basil, things like cinnamon and hyssop. Our bodies need these things, and we don't get a lot of these things, particularly in the Western diet. There's a reason that the Bible talks about herbs and spices in almost sacred ways. That never occurred to me until I was doing research on food freedom, and I came across a podcast by a guy named Dr. Patrick Giantempo, and I was listening to him. And then I found that he has a podcast called Christ Revealed, and he makes a product called Wisdom. So I read about the product and said, okay, wait a minute. This makes sense. This is biblically based, an herbal blend, and I became fascinated with this. Because you know me, when I talk about foods, it's always like, hey, if you could imagine it in the Garden of Eden, eat it. If you can identify a food, it's going to be 1,000 times healthier for you than something you can't identify. Well, you can identify all this immediately by taste. Wisdom is potent, and it helps with your immune system. It helps harness inflammation to help your body. It helps with mental alertness, but clarity, but also calmness. So Patrick Giantempo was inspired to do this when he was in the Holy Land, smelling the spices and reading about them in the Bible. So this is what he made, which I just took, Wisdom. You can try Wisdom now and get the benefits. Go to trywisdomnow.com/Todd. You'll get 33% off when you stock up. You'll get free shipping at trywisdomnow.com/Todd, and you get a 180-day money-back guarantee. That's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. We're working hard to get Dr. Giantempo on the show because I want to hear the story personally. Walking through the Holy Land and God speaking into him that you should go create this. It's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. Let's skip the Alex, the Gavin Newsom saying I want to know the answers because he doesn't want us to know the answers. So let's go back to, we were talking about Pete Hegseth at the beginning of the show. We were talking about the Alice in Wonderland, down is up is down, off with their heads, the bizarre. So let's put ourselves in this position. You come home and your neighborhood is on fire. So let's say 3 out of 10 homes are burning. And you rush into your house. You burst open the doors. You say your family's names. And they come rushing out, and dad is home, and they've got their belongings, and they're ready to leave. And you say, family meeting. We need to talk about the neighborhood banquet we're planning. So who wants to cook? And your family's going to be looking at you. I don't know. What's the cliche? You grow a third head? Grew a third head? They're going to think you've gone insane. While these fires were at the peak of their destruction, 0% contained, while there were new fires appearing all of a sudden, which wasn't terrorism, we're going to talk about pyroterrorism. We're going to talk about that on Friday. Turns out there was a lot of writing in the Department of Defense archives, in the Pentagon archives, and intelligence services archives about terrorist groups using fires just like this as terrorist opportunities. Turns out you can go look those up in government archives. I did that. So all these new hotspots are popping up, and they're becoming fires. There's no water. They're borrowing 2 airplanes from Canada. Firefighters from around the country are going to help out, but there ain't no water. So it is a verifiable, immediate state of emergency where loss of life is occurring at that moment. People are burning to death. People are choking in their homes. So Robert Rivas, the Speaker of the California State Assembly, is talking to reporters, responding to their questions as to why were you having a meeting, a special legislative session, not about the fires, but about making California Trump-proof.
I could take a couple of questions. I do have to jump on a call here in a few minutes.
With that, I mean, with what you just mentioned and kicked off here, is now the right time to have a special legislative session on allocating money to fight Trump in a way that you could already do without a special legislative session?
So I'm here to address these wildfires. This is a historic wildfire. This is a historic event. These wildfires, as I mentioned, are going to be quite possibly some of the worst wildfires and disasters in state and in national history.
While this wildfire is happening, and while people are trying to understand what's going on and are worried about disaster relief, worried about the ability to get homeowners insurance, your chamber gavelled into a special legislative session to prepare for Donald Trump in a way that you are already able to do without a special legislative session. So again, is now the right time for that?
So certainly our focus right now is Speaker Ashley. At this moment, my colleagues and I, we are acting with great urgency to ensure that we're providing much needed relief.
If I were that lady, I'd say, shut up! Shut up! Stop talking. Or maybe just say it politely. Mr. Speaker, stop talking. No. Answer my blippin' question, you belly crawler. Am I in the spirit when I say that? I mean, Jesus got to call people snakes and demons, but I don't know that I do. KCRA. Let's let the demon continue.
To Angelenos, to ensure that we understand what it's going to take for this region to recover, and to support those that have been most impacted by this disaster. This is the response from our first responders has been unprecedented. And
he's reading these notes. This guy, Rivas, is reading his feelings in his notes. His great admiration for the firefighters and first responders aren't his. They're coming off of a piece of paper. He has to reference a piece of paper to mimic feeling.
And they're doing all that they can to control and contain.
He's literally reading this garbage.
Again, these multiple fires are doing whatever they can to ensure that that they're keeping people safe now, and again, in anticipation and in preparation for recovery. And as a state, as a legislature, we will do everything we can to support that.
Let me tell you a secret about the walls behind him. I mean, maybe I've mentioned it, maybe you don't know, maybe you haven't heard me tell this story. So he's apparently in Sacramento, state capital. And let me tell you about how corrupt that state is. So back in the day when we had the big data company and we worked with government, not government, but office holders and politicians to try to help conservatives, such as they exist in California. And we were down there taking meetings and people using our tech to try to help the conservative cause. And I don't often like to have conversations with guys at urinals. It's happened. Conversation with Jeff Bezos once at a urinal. When else are you going to talk to Jeff Bezos? I mean, yeah, once at his office, but learn more about him at the urinal. And the Seahawks game, by the way, back when I watched NFL football. So I'm in the urinals, well, not in the urinals, but in the bathroom, and this guy that was taking us through the state of California, he knew everybody. He was skip a urinal. He was at the next urinal, so there's a urinal between us, so we were paying attention to the urinal spacing rules that men have. And he said, want to hear something funny? I said, about the waterless urinals. So they're waterless. And they're designed to be, they cleanse themselves in different ways. And it's this enamel they use is super slick. So, the urine just washes down. And apparently, obviously, janitors come in. But you don't flush them. And no flushing happens. I've never seen anything like that. So we were talking about it. I said, yeah, so what's the deal? He goes, all right, so right behind this wall, right here, guess what is right up against this urinal? What? Water pipes. Why? Well, when California did this to go green, they also saved money on plumbing. This was one of the pitches. You don't have to have incoming water. So they built this extension and this new office thing, and they spent millions of dollars to build it, hundreds of millions. And part of the pitch was you save money because you do not have to have all these pipes just for the sinks. The pipe fitters and pipe layers union found out about this. And they lobbied and got furious and threatened people like this belly crawler. And they said, you need to bring pipes in case they need water. They had to retrofit. They had to open the walls back up, according to this guy, and bring in pipes that don't bring any water, but they can. There was a gas station owner who got himself on camera and said the unthinkable during these fires in California. We'll talk about this in just a second. Hey, what is your plan this year for you and dealing with occasional depression, times of sadness? I mean, please, please, please make the primary plan giving things to God. You'd be surprised. Maybe you don't do this. But, man, I took a thing, and it was really affecting me. And I was wrestling with myself and how do I get over this and processing it mentally, and there was no solution. And every time I thought I had a solution, it got worse. And it was playing with my head. And just the other night during the youth ministry, I don't know what it is. I probably need to just go be 14 and go through the youth ministry and become a Christian that way all over again. It just occurred to me, hey, have you tried giving this to God? Wow, Bible says to do that, doesn't it? Actually said, hey, God, could you carry this for me because it's crushing me? And God said, yep. Glad you asked, because you weren't looking real good. You weren't handling that real well. It was crushing you. I was wondering when you're going to ask. So I did. Well, that's the spiritual thing. But God gives us certain gifts, and God is my witness. Wait, you're not supposed to do that. I fully believe that the invention of things like God making things like caffeine, I truly believe with everything in my body, spirit, mind, that caffeine is a gift for many, many people. It is truly for me something that helps me manage periodic depression. It is truly for me something that gives me mental focus. It is truly for me sort of a blessing. It's an antioxidant. It's many, many things. Don't let the coffee haters tell you otherwise. All this fake coffee, this mushroom coffee, it's not coffee. So then where do you get your coffee? If you sat with me and had a conversation one-to-one with my friend Tim Cruikshank, who's the founder and CEO of Bone Frog Coffee, and you actually met him and interacted with him, and you saw the bags of Bone Frog that say God Country Team, you'd say, of course that's what it says, because that's Tim. If you saw his fanatical focus on excellence, hiring veterans, working with veteran-owned companies, if you saw how seriously he takes the commitment to helping to fund the Navy SEAL Foundation, if you saw all of this, your one remaining question could only be this: does the coffee suck? It doesn't. It's the best coffee I've ever had. It's the only coffee I've ever enjoyed the taste of because of the fanatical focus on making it great and the mentorship of Dave Stewart, who started Seattle's best coffee. So go to bonefrogcoffee.com, skip the single purchase. Anybody can do that. Subscribe. You save 15% on coffee for a lifetime at bonefrogcoffee.com/Todd. Subscribe. If you've always subscribed, please go check out the merch because it's a great way to start a conversation about Bone Frog Coffee. We talked at the top of the show that Pete Hegseth, according to the Democrats, is disqualified because he's never been a general. Can't lead the Department of Defense, never been a general. Can't lead the Department of Defense. All you ever did was fought in combat, and gallantly so. Can't lead the Department of Defense because you have a problem with your libido and apparently still struggle with fleshly thrills. Completely disqualified. Where the senators who've never, stepped foot on a battlefield, like me, I've never done that. They've never set foot on one. They don't know what it's like to be shot at or to face an ID. They're just the ones who say, oh, we don't need to up-armor the RVs. I mean, the Humvees, we don't need to up-armor them. That would mean that we'd have to take away money from parties and such. So Comparison, California. You know who's really qualified to talk about what is going to be the after effect of all this? And it just begins here. This is a gas station owner. And he's warning people during this crisis that if they need to continue to evacuate, if they need to continue to get people out, he has a warning about prices, which, by the way, the corrupt mayor of Los Angeles has said she's going to be punishing guys like this. Watch this.
All right, guys, John Eric, I got a warning here for you. If you're going to be living on the West Coast for the next 3 or 4 days, you better get some gas. Check this out. This is our gas station. Right now, we're at $3.53 a gallon. We just got 10,000 gallons being dropped. I'm hoping to get another 10,000 tonight because the gas line from California to Nevada, if you probably don't know how this works, it ain't working, which means probably by Saturday or Sunday, I'm going to have to start buying my fuel from Oklahoma or Michigan or somewhere else. So gas prices are going to skyrocket. So fill your up right now. If you're in California, good luck. And I mean that. God bless you guys.
Real quick video from a gas station owner. You could say, always trying to get people in quickly to earn money. No, he's pointing out a fact. Infrastructure broken all over the place. He is going to have to purchase gas to be trucked across the country rather than through a pipeline. So what is the response from an utterly morally disqualified mayor? You don't get to raise your rates. Nope, that's price gouging. We're going to punish that. God can use anybody. Absolutely anybody. God could use Pete Hegseth, even though Pete really clearly has struggled with or still does struggle with sexual sin. Let's call it what it is. God can use anybody. God can use you. If you made it through this podcast this far, what with all the faith talk and such, it does bug some people. There's a reason you made it through. It's not me. I can't make you stick around. For what does God want to use you? This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well, be strong, and be kind. Please make every effort to walk in the light of Christ.